Welcome back. Here with us on Urban Debate on Mirror Now. When it comes to elections, what happens in Uttar Pradesh is important for a number of reasons, and we are not going to tell you those reasons right now because we've got the poll of polls for Uttar Pradesh ready for our viewers. Archana, what are the numbers really like in Uttar Pradesh?
Interesting numbers. I'm going to, not let my emotions and my, the response to seeing these numbers show on my face. So I'll just read out with a flat, straight face. Now, as per Times Now Veto, BJP plus 225 seats, SP plus 151, 9 seats to Congress, 14 to the BSP, and others getting 4. India Today, Access My India has projected 288 to 326 seats for the BJP. 71 to 101 to Samajwadi Party, 1 to 3 to the Congress, 3 to 9 to the BSP, 2 to 3 to others. P mark 240 to BJP plus, 140 to Samajwadi Party and Alliance, 4 to the Congress, 17 to the BSP, 2 to others. NewsX poll start 211 and 225 to the BJP plus, 146 to 160 to Akhilesh Yadav's SP, 4 to 6 to the Congress, 14 to 24 to the BSP, and none for others. ETG Research 230 to 245 to the BJP plus, 150 to 165 to Samajwadi Party and Allies, 2 to 6 to the Congress, 5 to 10 to the BSP. So all in all, it seems that the BJP is all set to retain power. However, it has lost out on a huge chunk of seats this time around, as far as these exit polls are concerned.
Tuhin Sinha, spokesperson of the BJP, joining us on the broadcast. Yogesh Mishra, leader, Samajwadi Party, live with us. Dr. Anshul Avijit, national spokesperson of the Congress Party, continues to be with us. Smita Gupta, senior journalist, also is with us this evening. Karan Verma, author and political commentator, also live with us on the broadcast. Thank you very much for joining us here on Urban Debate on Mirror Now. Smita, let me first take your opening comments on how the numbers are looking like for a state like Uttar Pradesh. Akhilesh Yadav versus Yogi Adityanath. That was essentially the fight in Uttar Pradesh all about. But the way Priyanka Gandhi Vadra, was out there campaigning for the Congress Party, are you disappointed with the kind of numbers that Congress is getting, at least in these poll of polls?
No, I anticipated that the Congress was not going to do very well. People had already made up their minds that it was going to be a contest between the BJP and the Samajwadi Party, Rashtriya Lok Dal, led combine. The party that one would have to look at seriously is the Bahujan Samaj Party. How much has that cut into the Samajwadi Party RLD combines votes? If these numbers are indeed correct. For the BJP, on the plus side, if these numbers are correct, it would mean that, as you have just pointed out, it's the first party to retain power in 40 years. But it also means that Yogi Adityanath, if he is renominated as chief minister, will be the first chief minister after Govind Ballabh Pant to do more than 5 years. But on the minus side for the BJP is the fact, if you take the average of the numbers, that it has lost, almost 70, 80 seats. So there was certainly a negative reaction to the party. For the Samajwadi Party RLD combined, the last time in 2017, the Samajwadi Party only got 47 seats and its ally, the Congress, got 7. So from there, it has, trebled. The coalition it has led has actually trebled if one takes the average. So it is a plus point, but I think the answer to this election will lie in how well the BSP has done. Because the BSP certainly, wherever I traveled, was holding on to its core Jata vote, which is about 18%. But in certain, in most places, Muslims who constitute roughly 20% in the state, were voting for the SP-RLD combine, except where they thought the BSP candidate had a better chance. So I think the answer will lie, the SP combined would have done better perhaps if, the BSP had been part of the alliance or if the Muslims had stuck to the SPRLD. I don't know. I'm just speculating right now because one doesn't have access to the actual figures. And
Okay.
I would stress once again that is going on the basis of this poll and not necessarily, it doesn't mean I necessarily endorse these polls. But
Right.
if I go strictly by these polls, these are the things that are emerging from it.
Right. Let's now take a response from BJP's Tuhin Sinha. Mr. Sinha, you've seen the numbers. While there is a comfortable majority for the BJP, but a massive vote share has shifted to Akhilesh Yadav. We've seen SP doing really well this time around. But yes, it seems if these exit polls numbers are to believe, then you will retain the government in Uttar Pradesh. What is your assessment of these numbers? Because when we spoke to the voters in Uttar Pradesh, apart from the shadow of 80-20 narrative and bulldozer Baba narrative, it all boiled down to unemployment. The youth, the women, everyone said that we need jobs.
Well, first of all, I really appreciate the concern of journalists in the Congress Party represent who are worried about the fact that from 80-20 ratio, we're coming to probably 65-35 winning ratio. But I think, given the circumstances that yes, the last 2 years have been difficult years not just for the country, but perhaps as well, there are big issues. Despite that, we have shown an enormous faith in us, enormous trust in us. There are two factors which are very important. One is that a validation of our difference mechanism. The Mahila
Tuhin, sorry to interrupt you. The audio needs to be fixed again. Sorry for that. We'll try and reconnect with Tuhin and get his response as well in just a bit. But Karan Verma, if we go by what the poll of polls is suggesting, and if indeed it is true, is it not also then indicating that polarization and Hindutva that had actually brought caste together, that is still intact?
Well, let's just put this into perspective. If the exit polls are to be believed, and if the BJP is on its way to a second consecutive term, then it's a victory of epic proportions in every sense. The last 5 years, Heena, Archana, they've not been easy. This started off right after demonetization, when the term started in May 2017. Then they had GST implementation, which had its consequences. We've had corona waves, multiple waves, loss of life, property, jobs, lots of things. If despite all of this, they can ride the anti-incumbency also and convert it into a pro-incumbency and be the first CM in 37 years or maybe more to be re-elected again, then it is a huge victory. What it also tells is that BJP set the narrative of this election right from the word go, whether it is cultural nationalism, which you can call Hindutva, or it's law and order as a thumping issue in UP. BJP got the narrative right from the word go. Other parties were only following the bait and they didn't have much to offer as an issue, as a narrative. BJP thumped it right with law and order. They got the social engineering right. They made strategic alliances when it mattered, be it with Apna Dal or be it with the Nishad Party. And they've outworked everybody. The kind of rallies the Prime Minister has had, Yogi Adityanath has had, they've had the first mover advantage also. So it's a huge victory if it happens, and I think we are heading in that direction. It's a tectonic victory. It'll have national consequences also, and it sets the tone for 2024.
Right. I think Tuhin Sinha is back with us.
That's the tone for 2024. Tuhin Sinha is back.
Yeah. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so while I really appreciate the concern of all the parties and political commentators about us reducing the margin from an 80% majority to 65% majority, fact is this is going to be a huge historic win for multiple factors. Number one, it is a validation of our deliverance mechanism. In the last 2 years, the way direct benefit transfers have happened, the way the ration has reached every
poor home, it is a validation of that. And it has led to the creation of a new constituency called the Mahila Labharti. If you look at it, very interestingly, in the last 3 phases of polling, the women voters exceeded male voters by a good 10%. And these are voters who vote for better law and order. These are voters who vote for better deliverance. That's point number one. Number two, in my opinion, the Mayawati's BSP is going to be decimated, much like the left party has got decimated in Bengal. So it was very interesting to know which way her vote bank is going to shift. And by every account suggests that it has shifted massively towards the BJP, which again is a validation of the fact that our schemes for the Dalit upliftment have worked big time. And yes, I mean, the improved law and order situation, the massive infrastructure push which we have provided to Uttar Pradesh, all of us vouch for the fact that we have been way better than the lawless regime of Samajwadi Party. And in one of the television appearances 2 months ago, I had very emphatically said that I will quit, coming on television if Congress gets more than 5 seats. I think I will, I must thank Rahul Gandhi for giving me a newsly lease of life even today.
Right, from the BJP, let's
but
now...
these are only projections. These are not final numbers, Archana.
Yes.
No, but I still repeat that claim. The Congress will not get beyond 5 seats, and that I think the Congress needs to introspect over here.
We're going to miss you, Tuhin. We're really going to miss you.
Might be a good slogan, but the fact is that, you beyond Uttar Pradesh, where you gave 40%
Congress party is going to
women,
miss you, Tuhin. That's what the Congress spokesperson has to say.
Yes.
We look forward to the 10th.
All right, let's. It's very important to talk about the Samajwadi Party now, because from 2017, although they are not winning UP as far as these exit polls are concerned, but what a brilliant turnaround this time, Heena. We've seen the exit polls showing some remarkable performance by the SP. So I would like to ask a question to Yogesh Mishra. When we spoke to the voters in UP, in fact, ground reportage, and if we talk about the mood on social media, the overcrowding, the massive crowd, the massive number of people that had turned up for Akhilesh Yadav's rally and SP's rallies, a lot of people thought that this is going to translate into votes. The number of people on ground will translate into votes. And everybody was talking about how passionately the Samajwadi Party has undertaken their election campaign this time around. They kept targeting Yogi government over law and order, over corruption, over mafia raj, over saying that the schemes that were introduced by the Samajwadi Party are just being revamped by the BJP, and they have called it their own. What do you think has favored for the SP this time around, and why did you fall short of forming the government? Yogesh Mishra, can you hear me?
Yogesh Mishra, can you hear?
आपको आवाज आ रही है हमारी? अच्छा मिश्रा, ओके.
आ रही है क्या?
हाँ मिश्रा जी, आपको आवाज आ रही है क्या?
जी.
हाँ मिश्रा जी, मेरा आपसे ये सवाल था कि अगर हम इन एग्जिट पोल्स को देखें तो 2017 के मुकाबले में काफ़ी बढ़िया परफॉर्मेंस रहा है समाजवादी पार्टी का. हालांकि सरकार नहीं बनती दिख रही है आपकी, लेकिन 2017 के मुकाबले डबल हो रही है आपकी टैली इन चुनावों, इन एग्जिट पोल्स के मुताबिक. हमने देखा कि अखिलेश यादव की रैली में पिछले बार के मुकाबले ऐसा कहा जा रहा था कि बहुत जनता जो है वो इकट्ठी हो रही है, और क्या वो जनता वोटों में तब्दील होगी, एक बहुत बड़ा फैक्टर था जिस पर सबकी नजर थी. एग्जिट पोल्स के मुताबिक आपकी टैली काफी बेहतर हुई है. आपके मुताबिक जमीनी हकीकत क्या है? क्या ऐसा हुआ जो अखिलेश यादव की तरफ वोटर्स का रुझान हुआ, लेकिन कहाँ थोड़ा सा कमी रह गई कि सरकार नहीं बन पा रही है?
सबसे पहले टाइम्स नाउ के पूरी टीम और पूरे सभी रिपोर्टर्स को मैं बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद देता हूँ. उनकी मेहनत का ये नतीजा है कि जो भी आप एग्जिट पोल लेके आ रहे हैं, क्योंकि आप जनता के बीच में जाके ये रिजल्ट लेके आ रहे हैं, तो कहीं ना कहीं कुछ जनता का मूड आपने भी भापा होगा. और रह गई बात, तो जो हम ये अभी तो नंबर मात्र हैं, फिर भी हम ये कहेंगे कि अभी हम 10 मार्च का इंतजार कर रहे हैं. और रह गई बात, तो जो भीड़ है ना, वो हमारे वोट में कन्वर्ट हुई है, हमें इतना विश्वास है. क्योंकि जनता के अंदर एक गुस्सा था. जनता, क्योंकि यूथ जो प्रमुख समस्या, अभी हमारे एक मित्र गिना रहे थे कि 80-20 का जो मामला था, क्योंकि इन्होंने देश के संविधान को तोड़ने की कोशिश कर दी थी, जो ये शुरू से ही 80-20 पे चलते रहे। जब कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन हमें कहता है वी द पीपल ऑफ इंडिया, तो हाउ दे डिवाइडेड इन 80-20 रेशियो, or then the another thing, then why when youth ask about employment, then they said that Ram Mandir. Then Kisan about ask about their problem, then they said Ram Mandir, and in the last page they said that we made the temple of Shiv, Lord Shiva, Kashi Vishwanath corridor. Then you said that why we after before 3 days a large number of students were going away to Purvanchal by from Allahabad. This picture was the really जो है ये जो तस्वीर थी ना, जो पूर्वांचल प्रयागराज से ट्रेनों में और बसों में
लेकिन योगेश मिश्रा जी, कहीं ना कहीं आपको ऐसा लगता है जैसे कि अभी करण वर्मा और तुहिन सिन्हा बता रहे थे कि कहीं ना कहीं जो नैरेटिव बीजेपी का था उसको एक थम्स अप मिला है वोटर्स की तरफ से, कहीं ना कहीं जैसे पैंडेमिक के दौरान जो फ्री राशन दिया गया था लोगों को, और जिस तरह से लॉ एंड ऑर्डर का जो मुद्दा बहुत खराब रहा समाजवादी पार्टी रिजीम के दौरान, लेकिन जिस तरह से बात हुई थी कि बीजेपी के रिजीम के दौरान चीजें बहुत बेहतर हो गई, और जैसे कि तुहिन सिन्हा बता रहे थे कि विमेन वोटर्स काफी निकल के आए हैं और वो उनके कोर वोट बैंक जो है बनते हुए नजर आए। आपको लगता है कहीं ना कहीं ये 3 फैक्टर्स हैं जो शायद बीजेपी के लिए थोड़ा ज्यादा काम कर गए इस बारी? हालांकि समाजवादी पार्टी को भी एग्जिट पोल्स की बात करें तो सभी काफी अच्छी सीट्स दे रहे, पर कहीं ना कहीं जैसे अर्चना ने भी कहा सरकार बनती हुई नजर नहीं आ रही है।
आपकी बात पूरी तरह सही है। हो सकता है कि ऐसा हुआ होगा भाजपा के लिए, लेकिन जमीनी हकीकत है कि ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं हुआ था, क्योंकि जनता कहीं न कहीं पहले चरण से आप ले लीजिए, जो पश्चिमी उत्तर प्रदेश का चुनाव था, वहां पे मैं पूरे 20 दिन वहीं पे था, पूरा देख रहा था सारा चुनाव, और जो है वहां की स्थिति मुझे देख के तो यही लग रही थी कि जनता में जो आप पहले चरण के जो फेज में 35 से 38 सीटें भाजपा को दिखा रहे हैं, जो उसके हिसाब से तो मुझे ये लगता है कि एग्जिट पोल के जो रिजल्ट है वो उस वहां पे पहले चरण का कुछ गलत है। पहले चरण में हम लीड कर रहे हैं वहां पे, क्योंकि जो पूरा किसान आंदोलन था, जो उसका कुछ न कुछ जो है आक्रोश जो है जनता में है, जो जाट वोट बैंक था उसका कुछ न कुछ जागरूकता आक्रोश है। और जो 7वां चरण में जो आज के चुनाव हुए हैं, और बीच के मध्य में धीरे धीरे जो ध्रुवीकरण, आतंकवाद, और फिर इसके बाद जब इन्हें पता चला कि अब बीच में हमें कुछ नहीं मिला तो ये एम्प्लॉयमेंट पे आ गए। एम्प्लॉयमेंट ये हर चरण में धीरे धीरे हम नहीं कर रहे हैं। हम 2017 में जनता ने हमें कहा कि आप विपक्ष में बैठ जाइए, तो हमने स्वीकार कर लिया, क्योंकि हमें कुछ कमी रही होगी। हमने 5 साल अपनी कमियों को दूर किया, जो हमें गलती रही हमने दूर किया। उसके बाद हम फिर से जनता के बीच में गए, अपने संघर्षों के बल पे गए, और लगातार हम जनता के बीच संघर्ष करते रहे, और उसके बाद हम जनता के बीच में, और जनता की जो भीड़ है ना, वो हमारा प्यार है। जनता आपसे प्यार करती है, और हमें पूरा विश्वास है कि जनता के जो हमारे साथ रैलियों में आती थी वो भीड़ वोट में कन्वर्ट हुई है, और हम अभी भी कर रहे हैं कि 10 मार्च का इंतजार हम कर रहे हैं।
In fact, Archana, that we have also seen in the kind of visuals we got from Uttar Pradesh. You know, Akhilesh Yadav was always seen greeted by enthusiastic crowds. I mean, wherever he went.
Absolutely, and you know, this comes at a time when, remember, Heena, initially EC had banned public rallies, and you know, because of COVID, when the election started, there were a lot of restrictions, and when these restrictions were eased, we saw people show up in large numbers, and like Mr. Tiwari said that Mishra said that देखना होगा कि जनता का प्यार जो है वो वोट में तब्दील होता है कि नहीं. So that is a very interesting point that he said. I want to ask Dr. Anshul Avijit of the Congress that, you know, we saw that it is a very high stakes battle. You know, Akhilesh Yadav is contesting his maiden assembly election. Yogi Adityanath is contesting his maiden assembly election because the stakes are so high. These are Lok Sabha MPs who have now, you know, taken the battle head on, and they have taken the plunge, and they are fighting assembly elections. Why did the Congress shy away from naming its CM candidate or putting up a brave face? We understand that Priyanka Gandhi Vadra was fighting from the front. In fact, in one of the press conference, she said कि आपको मेरे अलावा कोई चेहरा नजर आ रहा है क्या? When somebody asked her, are you the CM face? But you know, there was no definite reply. There was no definite, you know, like a very head-on risk that the Congress took. Although the tickets that were distributed by the Congress, you talk about women representation, Unnao rape victims' mother got a ticket. So that some of the decisions are very brave. But this is one question that always, I want to ask you that why did, not a very big phase, why did you not take a big risk there?
Well, we took a big risk. And like you said yourself, I mean, Priyanka Gandhi ji led the election right from the front. I mean, it was an unprecedented, historic announcement that to give 40% of seats to women. I mean, if Tuhin is talking about some Labharti women category, first of all, this Labharti category is a big bogey. It only came up, this word came up after the third phase of this election when the BJP realized that it's not doing well at all, which is why I disagree, aggressively with these kind of numbers. But, whatever it is, let me argue for the fact that, these numbers are wrong. And I will argue from the other side. And I'll tell you why. Because this category came up, and in my own survey of people in that state where I traveled extensively, particularly I was in Banaras for a long time, I got replies to the Labharti question saying that, the Prime Minister is giving us things, is giving us chawal, is giving us gehnu, but koi ehsan nahi kar rahe hain. It's not some act of great gratitude that he's doing. He's not taking money out of his own pocket. वो तिजोरी सरकार की तिजोरी से लेके पैसा यहाँ दे रहे हैं गरीब आदमी को. So he's not that he's doing a great favor. This was a reply that came time and time again. So,
but that, it seems, Dr. Anshul, has worked in favor of the BJP if these numbers are believed to be true. And it seems that the campaign that Priyanka Gandhi Vadra launched in the state of Uttar Pradesh, the kind of focus that she gave, to women candidates specifically, that probably hasn't resonated well with the people on the ground, because don't forget that this time even the voter turnout was very, very low as compared to the last time.
Yeah, well, let me tell you about the Congress campaign. It was an inspired campaign. It had novel ideas. It had reservation for women, which was not there before. We were there on the ground right from
Why did it not connect them with the people on the ground, in your opinion?
I am not telling you that the Congress does not have challenges in UP. Of course it does. The other parties do. A lot of the advantage of the Congress movement, of the excitement and the energy it created, had perhaps gone to many other places. It has remained with the Congress. The Congress will do well in this election. But let me just tell you a few things.
Karan wants to respond to what you're saying. Quickly, Karan.
Yeah.
Okay, finish your point.
Heena, one thing that people don't like during...
Yeah, sure. There are a number of issues. If I can just be permitted to see the number of issues that I saw on the ground during my travels, the issue with Chutta Janwar was massive among them. You have a mascot of the cow being the mascot, the symbol of Hindutva, but then you have it being a bane running through fields. This was particularly acute in eastern UP, where I traveled extensively, where there are land holdings. Right. The other thing was the mishandling during the second wave, which people remember. कि वहां पर लाशें गंगा में बह रही थी, and ये बीजेपी वाले कह रहे थे ये तो परंपरा है. People haven't forgotten that. People haven't forgotten unemployment, we've already spoken about, which is a massive.
Okay. Karan wants to respond. Karan wants to respond. Okay.
Heena, one thing that people don't like during elections is lack of credibility in your promises. Congress was promising reservation for women in UP. People directly asked them, why haven't you implemented the same in Rajasthan? Why haven't you implemented the same in Punjab? And Priyanka Gandhi would just smirk and not reply to them and say, I am the secretary here in UP, not in those states. So this is where people saw through these hollow claims. And not once did they have credibility in their claims. And second thing that people don't like during elections is timidity.
It's not a hollow claim.
They should have... Priyanka Gandhi should have thrown her hat in the ring and said, I am fighting these elections.
But they did give tickets
People
to
would
women
have appreciated
candidates.
That. These are the
How
two
can you call them
reasons.
hollow claims, Karan? They did give tickets to women candidates. How can you call them hollow claims?
I mean, you can accuse...
No. Can I
why don't they have, in their office bearers, why don't they have 40% reservation in their ministers?
One at a time. Karan, quickly make your point. Okay, Tuhin, I'll come to you in just a bit. Tuhin, 1 second. Tuhin, 1 second. Dr. Anshul, 1 second. Karan, quickly finish your point.
1 second. Yeah. I am saying, why doesn't Priyanka Vadra have a 40% reservation for women in her office bearers in the Congress party? Why doesn't she have that reservation for ministers in the Punjab government, in the Rajasthan government? There the ratio is abysmally low. In fact, barely one minister out of 16 in Rajasthan, if I'm not mistaken, or 2 out of 16 in Punjab. So that is where people could see through that. No, she is the one who's claimed this. So at least walk the talk on your claims in the states in which you are governing.
Okay, let the Congress spokesperson respond. Dr. Anshul, quick response, then Tuhin Sinha, please.
No, I mean, well, this can't be, this is not even worth to, but we've actually done it. We gave seats to 40% women in an act which is entirely unprecedented. If there has been something historic about this election...
Okay, Tuhin wants to respond, then I'll take that point that Dr. Anshul is making to Smita. Yes, Tuhin, go ahead.
Yeah, Heena, you need to, see through the hypocrisy of the Congress party. The only reason they promised 40% seats is because they just didn't have the candidates. They were hunting for candidates and they were virtually distributing candidates to, anybody who was even 10% qualified or even vaguely remotely involved with the party. If they were serious about the 40% ticket distribution to women, why didn't they give 40% of tickets to women in Goa?
What a bogus argument, Tuhin. You mean say that only if you're serious about the election, you can't give seats to women. Do you know what you're saying?
Okay, fine. If they were so genuine, we will see the result.
Okay, one at a time. Tuhin, quickly make your point. Then I'll go across to Smita Gupta.
Even if 5% of the women you give tickets to win, I will consider your action genuine. Point number 2, this very amusing narrative is being built around Samajwadi Party that because of the better crowds, they might, they will be doing, they will be performing wonderfully well. In fact, a senior columnist of the Times of India, Swaminathan Ankleshwar, wrote a similar article. Please understand that the only reason you tend to, get this impression that they have better crowds is because their crowd management is pathetic. They flirt with danger. They want an accident to take place to merely show. And you can, if you just minutely look at the rallies, the crowd management, they purposely allow people to come right up to where the leaders are and to, create an anarchist moment where it may appear that they have better crowds, but the reality is those are hired crowds. If so, is it actually, converting into seats? It is not. We have better crowd management, and that is one of the reasons why
Smita Gupta, now during the elections by the BJP specifically, we also saw a lot of new people being given the tickets. Do you think that probably also worked in favor of the BJP if we go by the numbers from UP specifically? By that, it could address the issue of anti-incumbency?
Certainly, that was the reason why the BJP fielded so many new candidates, because there were reports coming in of many of its sitting MLAs who had been renominated being, booed and heckled while campaigning. So the BJP was naturally seized of this matter. And then there were certain constituencies where the BJP rebels moved to the other political party. But the fact is that I don't think the BJP MLAs who will get elected because of their own reputations. They will get elected because of Yogi Adityanath and Narendra Modi. That was very, very clear during my travels. Secondly, I would like to address 2 other issues. One is this issue, I think, which the BJP spokesperson raised about how law and order worked for the BJP. The thing is that we need to decode what the BJP meant by law and order. It meant 80-20. It meant that because when you asked any BJP person to explain what law and order meant, the first thing that they would say is, "Hamari maa behne ab raat tak ghumti rehti hain," and all that. But the fact is that if you look at the record of the UP government over the last 5 years, people who were criminalized, victimized, were Muslims in large numbers. Whereas people like Dhananjay Singh, who is, I'm sorry to say, a Rajput from Eastern UP, who's called the Bahubali of Purvanchal, he has so many cases against him, murder charges, but he has been freely campaigning. This is something that people did note. But because of the communalization, perhaps it has helped in consolidating the Hindu vote if these results are correct. If you asked Muslims what they meant by law and order, they said law and order to us means something very, very different. It means that we are being lynched, that you're using the fact that you've banned the slaughter of cows by victimizing average Muslims. And please look at the records. So law and order means different things to different people. If there was truly any law and order, it was under Mayawati, who was completely fair about it.
Okay.
She was the only one who actually looked at the entire, all communities. So therefore, when you say talk about law and order, perhaps it worked. If these polls are right, it must have worked. But
Right.
it was another way of, communalizing and of polarizing society. And I think that is, if that is indeed true, that is a shame for this country.
Okay. Smita, I'm glad you mentioned Mayawati, because my next question is about the BSP. Time and again, we're talking about BJP and the Congress and the Samajwadi Party. And Mayawati has been reiterating that don't write us off. But if we were to go by the exit poll numbers, again, it's in double digits, 14 according to Access India, it's 329. So, for a former chief minister to be, getting these numbers in exit polls, but you said that law and order under her was great. How do you see the role of BSP in UP politics? And if we were to talk about caste politics, do you think the OBC voters and, other voters have moved their base to the BJP now? Is she no longer, the torchbearer or the power, the woman who is giving power to the voiceless?
No, definitely Mayawati has taken a beating, and Mayawati's numbers have come down. Now, Mayawati has generally not been seen too much over the last 5 years. All that is very true. However, she does retain control, as I said, of her core vote base. And even if she retains that entire vote base, hello?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, even if she retains that entire vote base, her votes are very thinly spread across the state. If you take Samajwadi's vote base, they are concentrated in certain areas, so they need less votes to get a larger number of seats. Secondly,
Yes.
when you there are among the Dalit communities in the state, the community to which she belongs, the Jatavs, are the largest, and I would say a vast majority, perhaps over 90%, would have voted for her this time. However, the other Dalit communities were split, and maybe a largest chunk of that would have gone to the BJP. As far as the non-Yadav OBCs are concerned this time, I would say that though there were some cracks in that, the bigger chunk would have gone to the BJP, because if you remember last time, that is on the basis of that, the BJP won huge majority, and then it was repeated in the 2019 Lok Sabha election. So, but we saw at the beginning of these elections some senior OBC leaders who were disgruntled, who felt that while they had been accommodated in the BJP, they did not really have a share in decision-making. There was also a sense of grievance at the fact that reservations, the reservation policy was not really being implemented. And so they left for the Samajwadi Party. That has somewhat perhaps dented the BJP. The results and a closer look will tell us how much. But I would still say that a big chunk of the non-Yadav OBCs are still with the BJP. As far as the Yadavs are concerned, one reason why the Samajwadi Party has done better this time is that the last time around, Akhilesh Yadav was stymied by the fact that his uncle had formed a separate political party, and the Yadav vote itself got divided. That vote has consolidated this time. Secondly, there was a fraction of so-called educated Yadavs who had shifted to the BJP. Those Yadavs have also come back. So in that sense, I would imagine that the Yadav vote is totally consolidated this time.
All right. That's an interesting point, Smita. So that's it from me and my team on the exit polls. Though interesting numbers, poll of polls for all states. Essentially, the big takeaways: BJP looking very strong in 4 states, scripting history of sorts in Uttar Pradesh. Thank you so much to our guests. And Heena, if you have a point to make on this very interesting statistic that we have gathered as far as poll of polls.
Well, all of this kind of result. It's interesting because, Archana, all of this despite COVID pandemic, yes. Don't forget that. And we'll see eventually what comes out on 10th of March. And Mirror Now will keep you ahead on this big story. For the moment, thank you very much for staying with us here on this coverage of the election season with the exit polls and the poll of polls.